Park and Adelaide getting the goal right on the bell, kicked by Liptak, their 15th for the afternoon, 15-15 to 13-16. Jamison 5, Bone 3 and 3 to Liptak for the Crows. And for the Demons, Jakovic 5, Bennett 3 and 2 to Lovell. There were no reports. 9,364 fans saw a great game of football at Princes Park. We'll take a break. Scott Palmer back on the other side. The Sunday Sun Herald. Scotty, good evening.
Good evening, Pete.
Well, only 3 matches, but the Swans unhappy after what, a controversial incident at Victoria Park.
Well, I can't say much, but there was simmering anger in there, Pete, over Ben Doolan, who ended up in the dental hospital tonight with 3 front teeth missing.
That was the reportable incident?
Yes, in which Craig Kelly was reported by 2 field umpires. Apparently, one of the physiotherapists from the Swans went out and found the teeth and put them in a glass of milk to protect the nerve ends so they could take him to hospital and maybe get him put back in. But we spoke to Ben as he came out of hospital. He's feeling very sick and sorry for himself, looking for a glass of beer, I might add, because with his front teeth he needs a bit of cooling down.
I bet he does. Speaking of cooling down, Collingwood playing in the heat, Lee Matthews would be used to that, wouldn't he, by now?
Well, Darwin, of course, and he's complaining about the heat and not enough water, boys, and he wants the league to look into this because he feels that a lot of his players were very dehydrated out there today. Lee said he was lucky to get away with it. It was a tough game. Any game in the heat is hard to win, but he was just thankful for the victory, and of course Dacos's 4 goals, which virtually got him out of it.
What did Buckenara have to say?
Bucky was very, very disappointed. On the scoreboard, we outscored him. We had more of the ball. We just made some fundamental mistakes, and a couple of the 50 metres were very costly for it. Very downhearted, Bucky. He thought he had a big chance to win that one.
The heat took its toll of both teams at the MCG. North Melbourne and Hawthorn both reporting a few injuries.
Well, Paul Deere has dislocated his right thumb, Pete, and will be missing for 4 weeks. A loss to the Hawks. Well, Alan Joyce gave him a real thumping speech at half-time, told them they weren't getting the ball away from the centre properly and moving into attack. They did it in the 3rd quarter, kicked all those 6 goals, and the match was over. But he said he praised North for the way they stuck it out, because apart from that period, the game was very, very close.
Johnny Longmire, doubtful next week?
Now he's got a groin, a back and a hamstring. So he's in a lot of trouble over there at North Melbourne, and he looked very, very gingerly when he was walking through the rooms tonight. Of course, they've got Buckley and Swass that pulled out from the team today. They'll be back, but Scholl's got a cork leg. And Schimmelbusch said that 3rd quarter was just devastating to the side.
And in the minute remaining, Scotty, John Northey, I guess, pretty unhappy after what happened at Princes Park.
Very unhappy. He said, what a form reversal from last week. He said the stewards should be called in. All the players that played well for him against Geelong let him down today. 5 good players only had 20 kicks between them. He was very disappointed with Jakovic, although he kicked 5 goals. He said he wasn't doing the things that he should have. He was going out, propping for the marks. The bloke was coming over, punching the ball away and clearing it up. He said he didn't follow through and attack the ball. And of course, Graham Corns said, look, nothing special about this. We're not celebrating. It's not a grand final. These matches in Melbourne aren't special. We're keeping everything low-key in Adelaide.
OK, we'll leave it there, Scotty. 4 matches, of course, tomorrow are telecast, don't forget, beginning at 1 o'clock, Fitzroy and the Brisbane Bears, and that in turn to be followed by the big game from Subiaco, the West Coast Eagles and St Kilda. So join us Sportsworld tomorrow and a big day of footy on 7. As I said, hope your team won today. Join us tomorrow on 7.
This has been another 7 Sport production, the network of them.
Welcome back to AFL today, and the matches yesterday, 3 matches and 4 will be played today in round 3. Some close ones. Hawthorn by 26 points, but remember they kicked 2 goals very late in that game. North had its chance. Adelaide in the close one of the day over Melbourne at Princes Park, and Collingwood by 19 points out at Victoria Park over Sydney in quite a controversial game. As we take a look now at the league ladder.
Now it's time to check the CUB AFL ladder.
And there'll be a big change here today, of course, with a number of teams playing, 8 teams involved in matches, but Fitzroy on top of the ladder at this stage. It's a welcome return for the Roy boys. Collingwood, Footscray, Carlton, Hawthorn, North making up the 6. The number of games are played on the left-hand column, and at West Coast and Geelong will both be desperate, along with Essendon today and Brisbane, to try and break the duck in 1992. As we go to the highlights, well, Gary Pertz played pretty well so far in his short career at Collingwood, but he did make a mistake there, and Strooper snooped in and kicked one of his 5 goals yesterday. It was a very entertaining game. Dacos, well, he is a magician, there's no question about that. We know that. He was held in the opening match against Brisbane, but he was in very good form yesterday with 4 goals. Nettlebeck's handball to Mitchell was a good one. Mitchell from just outside 50 and goals as it bounces through. And Sydney just kept in touch all day against Collingwood. Now, did Williams run too far here? See where he gets the footy? A fair way. Still going. Now he's balanced. He'll kick a goal. What's your decision here? Did the trainer block Fripp on the way in? Now, watch this. Did the trainer get in the road? Well, Fripp unable to get there anyway, and Watson takes the mark. Now, Craig Kelly was heavily involved in a few incidents yesterday. This is one where he did do a con job on the central umpire pretty well. You can see Tunbridge and Mackenzie pretty upset after Kelly made the initial move, and Kelly will get a free kick, and you'll see what happens out of this. He'll pass the ball, and Starcevic will kick an easy goal. So Collingwood getting a goal out of that. Had the Academy Awards during the week, Craig, and some surprise results there as Starcevic scores and goals. Now, we didn't show the actual incident where Kelly was reported, but it was around this area, and you've all seen poor Ben Doolan. And this was a funny one. Kosiskas fumbling after Dacos' initial handball. The ball will come back to Dacos, and Krasiska actually gets a boot to it right at the end to kick the goal. So Collingwood home, but a real struggle out there by 19 points.
Well, eventually it was magnificent.
Over the Swans. Big mark by Crocker. He played an outstanding game. Be interesting to see if Don Scott can find him in the best three on the ground. Here's Dunstall. That one wasn't paid. That also was a big high fly. Here's Platten going into the fence here. Bang. And tempers were frayed after that incident. I'm sure that was accidental. McDonald still going for the ball. Here's a good goal by Pritchard, who really ignited Hawthorn. It was a strange old game because North Melbourne won 3 of the quarters, Hawthorn won 1 quarter, and they won the match. Pritchard, here's Brereton. Now, why didn't Jason give it back to Dermy? He'd done all the work. Here we go. Take your pick. Oh, well. Dermott was pretty happy about it. Come on, mate, give us a handball. But anyway, Dunstall was pretty well held yesterday. Longmire was a surprise on him. There's Bickley being caught by Obst. We saw a terrific goal last week by the Melbourne player, Lamprey. Now here's Bone scoring for Adelaide. His first goal in league football. Outstanding goal. Adelaide got a bit of a record at Princes Park now. They played Carlton there last year and defeated them. They won yesterday. That's a great goal by McGuinness on the run. And they play Fitzroy there next week, so they might be their second home in Victoria, Princes Park. Here's Obst and Brown, ex-Port Adelaide players, both of them. Here's Jamison over the top. He kicked 5 goals yesterday. Darren Bennett, who'll be a guest on the program in a few minutes' time, kicked 3 goals, 2 yesterday. Jakovic kicked 5. Big kick by Darren around the body for a goal. It's Lindner and Lyon.
Jump in the air and tackle a bloke like that.
And here's Lindner having a wrestling match. And Liptak pulled down and Brown kicks the goal, and Adelaide got home by less than 2 goals. Now the reports. Kelly against Doolan in the 4th quarter, Murphy against McGuan in the 2nd quarter, and we'll be finding out from Scotty Palmer just what's happening with those reports from that match yesterday. All right, the headlines. In Western Australia, they're already saying that the West Coast are under some pressure because of the injuries, suspensions, etc. So they've really made an excuse already at the Sunday Times. They feel that the St Kilda may be right in with a chance. The Crows are right back in business as far as the Sunday Mail is concerned. I wonder if Andrew Jarman's allowed to write his column again there. And in Melbourne, well, the Swans are still very upset. This is from the Sunday Sun Herald over what happened with Ben Doolan yesterday. So that's what's been making news right around Australia. Who better to find out with the latest than... I wasn't going to call him the Professor of Propaganda.
You can do what you like, mate.
How are you, Scotty?
Terrific, Bruce.
Ben Doolan was a sorry sight.
Well, I turned up at the AFL House expecting to hear the tribunal this morning, but it's been postponed till tomorrow night, or till Monday night, yeah, because of certain things. So I think Doolan wanted more time to sort of get over his extractions last night. He's walking around with 2 teeth in a polythene cup. Oh. They're the 2 that haven't been able to be put back. Of course, they were found after the match, put in a glass of milk to sort of protect the nerve ends. But the Swans aren't saying much. They can't say anything because, as Bucky said, it's a contact game. But in the rooms yesterday, they were seething over the fact that it happened. So, but that's football, isn't it, really?
See, I hope everyone's enjoying their breakfast out there this morning. Johnny Longmire. Now, Did North Melbourne make a mistake by playing him yesterday?
No, they said that he was well over his hamstring and back injury. It's just that he went for a smother in the first quarter and felt his groin go. And he's very, very tender this morning. I spoke to Keith Gregg. He probably won't now play in that big match against Carlton at the MCG on Friday night, which is a disappointment for the Northerners, really.
OK, talk about it was a strange move putting him at full back, but quite a successful one on Dunstall.
Shimmer shed, he just wanted to do something different, a bit challenging, and it almost worked. And of course, it might have worked if he hadn't have done his groin. OK, you've talked about a big game next week, North Melbourne Carlton. There's also a big game at Moorabbin, St Kilda versus Hawthorn. Will Paul Deere be playing for Hawthorn? Well, the dislocated thumb might be fractured. They're going to give him x-rays tomorrow. They're just hoping it isn't, because dislocation might heal a bit quicker. But they feel there could be a little bit of a bone break in there, so that could be 4 or 5 weeks for Paul.
Gee, they're going to miss him. Adelaide. They get big crowds in Adelaide, but the Victorian clubs are pretty upset because they don't get much of the...
They're becoming quite emotional about this, Bruce. Particularly a club like Footscray that went over there and played before 40,000 people, and the actual gate from that match was only $40,000. They got $2,000 to come home with, and they feel that with Adelaide getting such big audiences, and the fact that so much membership is in that ground, they should get a bit of a better take-home pay.
So it's all to do with the fact that Adelaide has 25 or 26,000 members, and that money goes automatically to the
They've got 16,000 football park and 22,000 football club members, and they only have 5,000 seats for the public. So.
Right. Well, they might have only brought 2,000 home,
but they're going to get Adelaide now. There's no doubt about it. They're after Adelaide now.
Oh, those poor Crows. Now, what about Victoria Park? What's the future there with Collingwood?
It's become very political down there. There were petition takers all over the place yesterday, and they got 13,000 signatures. They just want the government to step in and decide this big blue going on between the council and the football club. They don't want the ratepayers down at Collingwood to be up for any more money, and let's hope that it is settled, because it's been going on for about over 12 months now, and it's not doing the club any good, the ratepayers any good, and the city council any good.
Scotty, keep punching.
Good, mate.
You've done very well, and we'll see you next week.
Hope so.
Oh, I'm sure we will, Scotty. Nothing's going to happen to you in the week. We'll take a break. The panel after this. Looking group, aren't they? And why not? Welcome back to the Football Hour, the panel. Now, there's been a petition. Not only has the Collingwood fans are petitioning about Victoria Park, there's been a petition from the Sportsworld panel that we don't start with Bob Davis today because nobody else gets a chance. And he always introduces Ron Barassi and doesn't let me get in, so we're going to start at the other end. Good morning, Bob, by the way, but don't say anything at this stage. Hello, Gerard, how are you?
I'm well, Bruce.
Now, why have you got the Melways with you, mate? Couldn't you find your way in this morning?
That's not the reason, Bruce. Viewers are Melways, and this is what the umpires that officiated in yesterday's game will be reaching for on Thursday, because they'll be sent to parts unknown to try and recapture some form. They were responsible for some inexplicable decisions. Now, it probably didn't change the result, but certainly marred the game, and what could have been a close game ended up fairly one-sided.
So you're saying that Collingwood was favoured by the umpiring decisions yesterday?
Well, there was a couple of absolute shockers. There was one, even a boundary umpire might go with them, because it was clearly out of bounds on the full by 3 metres, and he didn't pay it.
Yeah, that was Kapler kicking it out. That would have gone to Collingwood.
That's right. He didn't pay it. Well, that's what I'm saying. They were inexplicable. Every umpire knows that he must go.
Surely they can make a mistake.
They can make a couple, Don. They can make a couple.
Don, I haven't
we've seen it on TV.
I'm sorry, Bruce. I'll wait my
Rule
turn.
number 1 for umpires is go the way of the Victoria Park members, and he didn't even follow that one.
Tim Watson, welcome once again. Now you went to the MCG, because I was there with you. Hawthorn, they seem to be outplayed for 3 quarters, yet won. Why? Is North Melbourne incapable? They haven't beaten them for about 7 years now.
Well, it actually looks a little bit that way. I think that North Melbourne really did have the opportunities yesterday to nail Hawthorn in the 3rd quarter, and I didn't feel that Hawthorn picked the pace up at all. I just felt that North Melbourne dropped off a little bit in that 3rd quarter, and they made a bit of a last-ditch effort in the last quarter. But I was very disappointed with North Melbourne yesterday. I think they're a team that promises a lot, but at the moment they still don't deliver.
Don, do you agree? Because you were also at that game, calling, by the way, and good job done.
And, well, geez, I'm a little bit flabbergasted, Bruce, coming from you. But one aspect of the game that I'd like to bring up, and it's been a bit of a narc of mine for a couple of seasons now, is just holding the man. And again, it was evident yesterday, and Darren Goldspink was the umpire in question. At one stage, Schenke was running behind McCarthy. Goldspink was there. he didn't pay the free. The next time the ball came down, exactly the same thing, he paid the free to McCarthy. And that's not only one incident, but a lot of players now are holding before the ball is in the vicinity. In one player in particular, Alistair Lynch, actually puts his hand, if I can use you, Ron, around the opponent and punches away like this. So this is something the umpires have got to do, because that is holding the man.
So now you're criticising the umpires.
I've done that on that particular instance.
Don, what about the throwing and the handball? Because yesterday, okay, Ron, you've just been used as a dummy. You can be used as a real thing here.
Good morning. I'm on the side of the umpires this week. I thought they did a good job in the match that Don and I were at, and I thought their interpretation of the handball, which I defy anyone to really accurately fix on a quick handball. Well, in fact, David Parkin said yesterday he has practised himself and no one can detect whether his fist strikes the ball or not. But I thought it was good that they pulled up...
So therefore, Ron, isn't it very hypocritical for you to sit on the rules committee? Why don't you just allow them to throw the ball? Because you're critical of the umpires, all of that. It is the most ridiculous thing. You and Parkin were tantamount to cheating in that interview yesterday. You say that you were definite cheats. You've learned to throw the ball pretending you agree.
I'm just about to say that throwing the ball like an outright throw is absolutely ridiculous. It's against what our game's about. We don't do things the easy way. Otherwise, we wouldn't even make guys bounce the ball every so many metres. Well, we do things the more difficult way. That's where our game is unique. Well, so that's why it was good yesterday that we pinged a few handballs. It'll make people, particularly the South Australians, think about properly handball.
Well, Barras, Ray Jordan commented during the week that he's now coaching his under-18 players to do the shuffle handball.
That's right. Well, he won't from now on.
But that's been around since Adam was a boy. You don't hold that hand stationary when you're handball.
Don, speaking of Adam, we should introduce Bob. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Bruce, and I just wanted to get that bit because it is the most hypocritical.
Why did you get in? You got in nothing but dribble.
Lovely new coat, Bob.
Silly Ronnie. You wanting to bend the rules. They're actually teaching them to break the rules.
Bob,
I thought a game was supposed to be played within the rules.
Bob, we do have
last week you
bend the rules, Bob.
Bob, we have
the rule is if we've got a guest, he gets on.
Bob, would you like to introduce our special guest, Bob?
I thought he played all right yesterday, Darren, as a matter of fact.
Well, you're going to give us
3 goals.
Darren Bennett, welcome.
Yeah.
Bad luck Melbourne didn't win for you to come in today, but it's been a lot of talk about you and Alan Jakovich in the one team. You kicked 8 between you yesterday. Do you see a future for both Jakovich and Bennett in the one team at Melbourne? I thought I'd ask you an easy one first up.
Sure, thanks very much. I think there's a future for us in the both in the forward line. I think there's times where I stay back in the goal square and let Alan lead. There's also times where I head out and when we've got David Schwartz playing at centre half forward, he likes to roam a little bit further up the ground. So it's good for me to get out around the 50-metre mark. It probably limits my opportunities to have shots at goal, but it's a team game, so there's always the opportunity. Like yesterday, I kicked a couple of goals off the ground and enjoyed it. So.
Bob, what about your votes before we have a look at highlights and talk to Darren?
I gave 3 votes to McDermott, who I thought played extremely well for Adelaide, especially later in the game. I gave 2 votes to Wiedemann, who probably put the fear of the football into Melbourne at a couple of times. There was nothing, it was a very good game. There was nothing wrong with Melbourne's tackle or anything like that, but he really did show what you can do. And I thought that Pickering, because of the consistent amount of times that he got the ball, I didn't say he was doing every great thing with it a lot of the times, but he did really help Melbourne a lot.
But you're saying that Melbourne were intimidated by it?
I know. I think that the week before, I believe that Melbourne ran very strongly at the ball. Yesterday they did too, but Wiedemann certainly gave his own team a great lead. Is that true, Darren?
Yeah, I think in the back line he probably had a lot of opportunity. He wasn't marked for 2 quarters of the game, so when you're roaming around in the back line by yourself, it's fairly easy to get a kick.
And he can sight the ball and make real drives.
Yeah, I think he probably did give them a lot of drive across the half-back line.
Darren, I was critical of you in the pre-season that your preparation looked a little bit underdone. You looked a little bit overweight. How is it at the moment?
Yeah, it's good. We've done a lot of swimming work pre-season and it got the weight back down. That was more of a calculated thing than actually a big blowout. I decided to rest my knees at the end of the season last year so that I bring them up fresh for this season. So I didn't train until January this year, and it seems to have paid dividends now, so they're feeling pretty good.
Any secrets to the weight loss?
Oh, just swim and swim.
Terry Wheeler said the secret, well, we assume he said the secret to the Crows was McGuinness. Did you have plans for McGuinness yesterday? Did they succeed?
No, not really. There wasn't anything that we set out to do specifically for Tony.
He really wasn't tagged that much, Darren, was he?
No, he wasn't.
No.
I think what we did basically was just decide that we were going to put pressure on every player that had the ball, whether it was Tony or any of the other Crows players. And I think we did that very well in the first quarter. I think maybe the heat came into it a bit in the second half, and we slowed down a bit, and subsequently we didn't have as much pressure on the
They did
Adelaide
slip
players.
away from you a bit at times. The couple of the slippy little fellas got clear of you, didn't they?
Yeah. There was a few times where they probably were allowed to run too freely with the ball.
Darren, have you ever considered playing on the ball, or has that ever been mentioned to you?
I played on the ball in most of my junior years.
Would you like to now?
Well, Jimmy does a great job in the ball.
That's not what I said. Would you like to?
Well, I think my role as a ruckman is probably more around the forward line. I enjoy being around the forward line more than roaming all over the ground. But by the same token, I like the freedom that I have at the moment to be able to move a little bit further up the ground than I have done in previous years.
Darren, from what distance are you confident that you're going to have a shot?
Oh.
You really are a very good kick. You're a 50, 60 metre kick.
If the man on the mark's on the
surety.
50-metre mark, I'm probably a chance, I think.
And therefore, you could play out the ground without any problems.
Yeah, well,
Really?
that's I had a shot yesterday from a fair way out, and I was quite confident that I was
That you'd make the distance.
Yeah.
With your ruck work, is there a rule with the team that you take ruck work on the forward line to a certain distance down towards the centre line, or you just play it as it comes?
No, it's David Schwartz takes a lot of the ruck work in the forward line as well, and he's got a magnificent leap, and it's basically whether he's close enough to the play to take the ruck work. If he's not, then I take it and he shoots down to the forward line.
Did you give the big Irishman a rest in the forward pocket this week like last week?
Jimmy actually spent some time in the forward pocket. He actually rolled his ankle, I think.
He got a bit tired, or he did have
yeah.
some slight injury.
What's going to happen if Jimmy does go down with an injury?
I think that's something we have to look at as the season goes on. It's probably had a lot of emphasis placed on it. But we've also, we've picked up Andy Goodwin and Wayne Henwood, they're both big players, and they can probably play in a key position, which would take a lot of pressure off David Schwartz and allow him to maybe do some ruck work. Also, we've got Matthew Marnie, who's 6'7". He's just had a knee operation, but he'll be right in 3 or 4 weeks. So he probably is the best backup that we have for Jimmy at the moment.
Darren, talking about big fellas as you were then, when you look from the boundary, will you get close to that bone at all? Is he a monster?
He's a big boy.
Is he? He's
yeah.
18 or something, and
Yeah.
he's got a bit of, he's lively and that.
Yeah, he's and shows quite good skills too.
Is he really a big fellow?
Yeah, he's very big. Yeah.
Darren, there's a lot of criticism of the umpiring out there yesterday. Did you find it confusing?
Oh, I'm not saying anything about the umpiring.
Well, the players can't be fined, can they?
Sure
Well,
can.
Can they?
You can say what you like, Scotty. I'll keep my mouth shut.
So you weren't happy with the umpires yesterday, Darren?
I'm not saying anything about the umpiring yesterday, Don. I thought it was quite good.
Well, you've just said something.
Yeah. Do you think the water boy rule should be relaxed on hot days?
I think there's been a lot of talk about it over recent months, and there's a lot of talk about the hepatitis B and the AIDS thing with bleeding players, and there's also the talk that every player should have their own water bottle, and so if that is going to be brought into as a rule, then obviously we do need more water boys to be able to have a water bottle, one for each player.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the heat and the need, therefore, for more water during the game.
Well, if you've got everyone's got their own water bottle, then you're obviously going to have 8 or 10 water boys running out on the field, but it will create a bit of havoc on a small ground like Princes Park.
They were getting in the way yesterday. A couple of guys shepherded Terry Tripp out, which wasn't really good.
Yes, I haven't seen that, but I heard there was
Darren, last week's game against Geelong was a fairly physical sort of a clash, and I thought the Melbourne boys went out at 100%. During the week, was there a lot of guys nursing injuries coming into this game yesterday?
No, there was probably only Greg Healy was the only one that came up with any sort of injury. We seem to have got out of it pretty well during the week. So there was no real injury worries, I don't think.
Is there anything special about the headbands?
No.
And will you be wearing one in the future?
No, with hair like this, you think you reckon? No. It's usually the players that have got longer hair, and once they start to sweat, it gets in their eyes. So
there's no secret messages behind the headband?
No, there's no
Jared,
team tactics or anything like that written on them.
I know Jared likes the headbands, don't you?
Yeah, I love the headbands, yeah. I think they're players wear them for every reason other than keeping their hair out of their eyes.
OK, fair enough. Darren, thanks for coming in. By the way, Brian Sheehan and Brett Allen, who were the umpires yesterday, will be going with you for all your Melbourne matches from now on. They're very happy with your comments. Good luck for the rest of the year, mate.
Thanks.
Darren Bennett. We take a break, back with more after this. Draw Brisbane and Sydney, both at Victoria Park in the first 2 weeks. I know the army of fans will be talking finals and maybe even premierships. Premature?
A little bit premature, Bruce. I think we're going to have to wait for the next month when Collingwood do play a little bit better calibre of opposition. But it was a very warm day yesterday, and they were missing a couple of their very good players in Gavin Brown and Tony Francis. But one of the players that stayed cool when most were a little bit hot under the collar was the marvel Peter Dacos. I thought he was the difference between the two sides. In fact, if Dacos was playing for Sydney yesterday, I think the result would have been different. Paul Williams, well, he deserved his 2 votes despite getting onto the ground halfway through the second quarter. His contribution was such that he turned the game, and it's very difficult to get votes if you come on at that point, but such was his domination. And Brad Tunbridge, well, he edged out his teammate Paul Kelly, who had 35 possessions, but wasted a couple, and I thought he possibly wasn't as effective as Tunbridge. Tunbridge was the player that gave Collingwood a lot of headaches early in the piece because he did dominate in the centre, getting the ball out. It was a physical game, and the Swans must be commended for their commitment at the ball. They were making a few mistakes under pressure, however, and experienced players Kapler and McKenzie in the back line were guilty of a couple of terrible unforced errors which let the opposition
One
end.
player that impressed me last week was McGovern, his first game. Jared, how did he go yesterday?
Well, he did play quite well. He was moved on to Scott Russell after half-time, and Russell was best on the ground at half-time and kept him very quiet in that second half. The one area where he was very poor was his kicking out from goal. Time and time again, he kicked short chip kicks that went straight back to Collingwood, and if this is a plan of Buccaneers, well, it certainly does need some work.
Murphy had an ordinary year last year. Excellent skills, as we know. How's he going?
Well, Murphy is a bit of an enigma. In fact, he's one of the most talented players I've ever seen, and yet he's never finished in the top 5 in the best and fairest at Sydney. But yesterday, his attack on the ball was excellent for 3 quarters. He just faded a little bit in the last quarter, but one of the better games I've seen David Murphy play for consistency.
What about Jamie Lawson?
Well, I was a bit disappointed in Jamie Lawson's game. He kicked 1 goal, but if Collingwood had the Swans had the setup of Strooper at full forward leading out, and they needed somebody at the bottom of the packs. Well, that was Lawson's job, and he wasn't there crumbing enough.
Jared, Gary Pert and Tony Woods from Fitzroy in the back now?
Yes, well, Gary Pert had a reasonable game, made a couple of unforced errors, which are a little bit uncommon for him. He was forced off Strooper, but did have a good influence. Woods, well, it's not often a player's recruited from Czechoslovakia, and that's where he came from in the draft, but he's very good under pressure, and his delivery is excellent.
Is Strooper going to do the job there in the full forward position?
Well, I was a little bit critical of Strooper in that his strength is his leading, and when he did lead, he was good. If he tries to go one-on-one against a player of Pert's calibre, he's going to lose. But the Swans do need another foil for him for that forward line to be set up. And for you, Don, Brunton, yes, he played well again.
The man I wanted to know
Picked
about.
out Mick Maguire. Brunton is one of those players that has come from nowhere, has just kept going and going and going in his football. He's been given the sack 4 times, and now he's got a couple of very good scalps on his belt.
Now, has Monkhurst been given the sack? I mean, is he a dinosaur that you've written about? Is he too big as a ruckman? What was his form like in the Premiership? He was pretty good. How's he going now?
Well, I saw him play in the seconds. He and another one that's in the potential dinosaur bracket, and that's Gareth John. They had a pretty good battle in the seconds. I think Monkhurst is quite mobile enough to become a player of
So what's gone wrong?
Because
Well,
the coaches play them in a certain way. They just leave them on the ball all day, do not change them in the forward pocket, in the back pocket.
Ruckman haven't changed out of the forward pocket for about 5 years.
That's
Don.
right, and that's what has brought the thing on since the early 80s.
Well, you were the ruck coach at Melbourne, and they had O'Dwyer and
Steins
in and out of the back
and
pocket.
really
What
was
went wrong?
very hard to counter when those two...
What went wrong in the last 3 years?
Because
O'Dwyer
they
now is a
fancied,
dinosaur
the
at Richmond.
hierarchy fancied playing one ruckman. And when those two played, and they did at the start of last year, they were a lethal combination. And they both made state football in the 1 year too when they were playing as a
Well,
combination.
explain to me now why O'Dwyer's at Richmond.
Because they preferred the mobility of Steins. And
Okay.
but they could work.
Does
if
that
used.
make O'Dwyer a dinosaur, as I'm trying to say?
No, it does not.
Every coach
Does
prefers
not.
the mobility of Steins.
O'Dwyer gets hit outs in the centre, Steins doesn't.
He doesn't get anything round the ground.
Just briefly, Tony Shaw.
Yeah, played a fair game in the throughout. Coming back, he was on Mitchell. Had Mitchell's measured at half time, but Mitchell probably got on top and finished with 30 possessions.
Okay, fair enough. Don, you were at the MCG yesterday. I actually got to call a couple of minutes yesterday when you took a break.
I was waiting for that.
I almost was able to make some comments too.
I can't wait, Don, to see who you gave the 1, 2, 3 for, because you saw a lot of the game.
We left 3/4 of the game.
Did you really? That's why I had trouble with the votes. But one little player that really does impress me, and he's impressed me when I was in Adelaide for a short time, and that's John Platt. And he's just everything I believe a little rover should be. He's team orientated, he's under packs, he does the work up the ground, he just doesn't sweat, he's in there setting an example. Picked up a lot of possessions yesterday. It was a good battle between he and Rock. Andy Collins, now this fellow runs from the back pocket and at one stage was down in the forward pocket initiating a goal. It was terrific play, and it's terrific to see backmen actually take the bit between their teeth, and that man Darren Crockett did take the bit between his teeth. He started out in front of Jarman, led him to the ball and really did attack it. But a couple of other fellows I should mention, Pritchard, Gowers, Deere, Ayres and Jenke. They were really good contributors. As for North Melbourne, Spargo, Dennis, Gallagher, Carey and Rock.
Don Jarman came into his own when he was moved into the centre in the second half, as he did in the game before where I saw him against Geelong. Do you think he struggles a bit on a flank, and they probably need to look at it in there?
Well, I think he's indicative of a lot of Hawthorn players, because you look at Brereton, kicked the first goal, and he is a very good finisher. Then we don't see Dermott again, although he finished with 3. Hudson came in the third quarter, I think kicked 2 goals. We didn't see much of Hudson there. Same with Dunstall. They've got the ability to go in and out of the game when it's required. I think that's because they've got so much ability, Tim.
Yes, they have.
You mean as a team?
No, as individuals within the team,
of course.
And as a team they combine very well, but as individuals they have a lot of skill.
Now on Dermy, he's obviously not fit. He said himself he's 50% fit. Is that going to be good enough? I
don't think it's good
going to get
enough.
away with this nursing business?
No, I don't think it's good enough, because Dermott, and has for a couple of years now, played in spurts. But gee, he kicked 3 goals yesterday. But his man, Richard Dennis, was a good player, Tim, I thought.
Yes, and actually at one stage Dermott was about 30 or 40 metres behind Richard Dennis, who was sort of marking the ball on his own and running down the field. So, I mean, they're going to have to watch that.
Has North picked up anything from last year, Don?
I think they're a little bit harder. They can get a lot harder. They've got a lot of talent. I watched their seconds yesterday too. They've got a lot of talent there, but they've got to get a little harder in attitude.
Don, what about Gallagher versus Lawrence in the ruck? I thought was one of the interesting duels of the day.
Yeah, good battle between those two, wasn't it?
Who do you think won?
I might sway Gallagher's way.
Yeah, I thought he was just...
What about round the ground?
Gallagher.
Gallagher. They were really playing, both were playing across the half-back lines.
Yeah, a bit apart, weren't they?
Opposing sides, yes.
Well, ruckmen have never been together, have they? They've had it easy for years.
Tim, I just got the impression, talking to you yesterday, that you felt North couldn't get over this psychological thing of beating Hawthorn.
Well, I think that North have got a problem, is that they've got a lot of introverts in their side, and when they do need someone to take the game by the scruff of the neck, there really isn't anyone there putting their hand up, and I think they'd be a little bit worried, North Melbourne. I've been a fan of the North Melbourne team for the last couple of years because of the talent, but they really are getting to the stage now. A lot of those players have played quite a bit of football. They're becoming experienced players, and they really do need to take the next step.
Okay, it's a fair comment. Progressive votes from last weekend as well. There were a number of matches played. Sydney West Coast, Dennis Committee goes Tunbridge. Gee, he's going well. Brunton and Mitchell, all for Sydney against West Coast. Essendon versus Fitzroy, and the votes there from Bobby Davis, Dundas, Roos and Osborne. Fitzroy 1, 2, 3, and Robbo, who was at Footscray St Kilda, went Foster, Wind and Atkins, all for Footscray. As we take a look at the progressive votes for the Player of the Year, we see that Atkins, Wind and Tunbridge are at the top with 4, Platten, McDermott, Dundas, Foster, Dacos at this stage on 3. But it's very early days, as after this, Goals of the Week.
The Goal of the Year are brought to you by BP. BP, on the move.
Well, young players, watch this one as Mitchell charges in, watches the ball, doesn't keep his eyes on the hip, which allows Matera to balk nicely and kick what I thought was going to be a match-winning goal, but not to be.
So watch Rowan Smith here crumbing the ball, the youngster, and then spinning around. It's a long snapper goal. He's almost on the 50-metre line then. That was a great snap, and he's quite happy about that too.
Well, watch the recovery here of Michael Long. He's pushed out to the boundary line by Seacamp, swings around, gets a little bit of assistance from Wanganeen with a shepherd, and then finishes off for one of Essendon's few goals last week.
And Brett Stevens here sells the pup, goes around, straightens up on a bit of an angle. It's a long goal to Fitzroy, and that was one of many kicked last Sunday.
You can tell me what a pup is later, but Peter Dacos imparts this type of spin because he knows when it bounces the other way, and that was perfectly weighted and a great goal from the master.
Here we see Paul Williams running down the field, bouncing the ball left hand twice, having the presence of mind to settle, kick, and it clears the pack and goes through for a long goal, and that would have brought the Collingwood fans to their feet.
That it did, and so did this one. It brought the commentators to their feet. Great presence of mind, working the boundary line a la Keith Gregg in his heyday. Paul Kelly, an amazing goal.
This one of Andrew Gowers is a fantastic goal. He's caught not much space on his wrong foot. He's given it the reverse punt, and he actually aimed that for the goals, and that was a fantastic goal.
Randall Bone, well, a little bit similar to the goal of the day last week. Excellent snap, brought it from nowhere. Well, Tim, I like Paul Williams under the heat of the moment, but you've walked in, you've been here 5 minutes, and you've taken over. Who did you like?
Well, I liked Andrew Gowers. I thought that was a fantastic goal, and he really did have the presence of mind to put the ball onto his left foot, his non-preferred foot, and he screwed that ball back for a terrific goal under extreme pressure.
Bobby Davis doesn't agree with that.
Well, I didn't say anything about it, Ron. Now, don't start up on that.
What about your eyes?
He had a look that if you watch if you replay it a little bit, he did have a very good look before he took the ball.
Why did you roll your eyes then?
Because I thought it was a very good goal.
Oh, good idea. Bob, well, please, if Tim's name was Tom, then that would have been Tom and Jerry together, wouldn't it? But it's not, so it's silly, really, isn't it?
Same as.
Oh. The progressive winners of goals of the week. Gowers, well done today, Andrew, with McDonald and Gowers. So, Hawthorn. Gee, didn't know that. Now, what's happening with the goals of the progressives? Who's leading? Yes, Dunstall with 19. Jakovic with 12. Silvani and Lockett 10. Lockett gets a crack today. Strooper and Hawkins 8 each. Dougie gets another chance. So Strooper's got 9, Hawkins 8. And Richard Osborne, who goes up to Brisbane today, and Jamison both with 7. Wrong jacket and the wrong tie, but Bob Davis, it's good to see you're looking well with the 7 Sport. Where'd you get that one from, Bobby?
I found it in the dressing room.
Probably Ron's.
But what makes it worse is that he's got a Brisbane Broncos tie on.
Gee, Ron, you was a great supporter of the AFL.
I have been here 4 years and asked every day.
For 4, right?
1,200 times.
Could be a message for us.
No wonder a lot of people reckon you're boring. have a look at the marks of the week. Wait a second. Here we go.
The marks of the week.
The Mark of the Week and the Mark of the Year are proudly brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors.
Hand pass. Barry Mitchell.
Well, here's very good concentration, complete eyes on the ball. Strong mark here by young Jamie Lawson.
Craig Nettlebeck. He was a great athlete as a youngster, a New South Wales athletic champion, and he showed it on that occasion.
Good concentration here and great athleticism.
Darren Kapler, who pushed who in that situation? The umpire said that Darren was right and he took a mark.
Very good leap here by David Grant. A genuine high mark, not one we see a lot these days, but he's got the reputation of doing a lot.
This player's got a big future, and there he is, Scott Wind.
And here's David Grant again, a terrific leap here and also enormous courage.
This man's been reborn, Doug Hawkins.
You little champion, Dougie!
Yes, a regulation mark here, regulation diving mark that is. All you have to worry about there is your comics.
Is that a flying doctor? Steve Paxman, here he'll come. What a leap.
Now here's young Dale Murphy. It's a top effort here. He's actually pinched it out of the Collingwood guy's hands.
Now Peter Dacos and Leon Higgins both holding one another, but it's Dacos who comes out on top.
A very special mark here by young Craig Nettlebeck. He looks to be hopelessly out of position there, but somehow got in there and got it.
Darren Crocker, what a ripper of a game he played yesterday, and that was a fantastic mark.
Rodney Jamieson here. Very good judgment and very safe hands.
Getting a bit boring, Rodney. You're taking another one. He took it on the green patch, which softened his fall. Ron?
Well, somehow or other you all got the nod.
I did.
You never took a mark over your head in your life.
So I've got great appreciation of how difficult it is, but how you ever went for Craig Nettlebeck over David Grant is beyond me. David Grant now starting to come into his own, and he took the mark of the week as far as I'm concerned. And here it is. Look at this. A magnificent leap. A lot of players put their hands into the back, but that was just a pure leap.
Well done, mate.
Don, you're not referring to one that Dermy took yesterday, hands in the back,
well, that was a shocker, and actually that changed the game too. Okay. How the umpire missed that's beyond me.
Winners' progress. Who's been taking marks of the week? Well, Ablett, Lamprell and Grant so far. They're the winners so far, round by round. Speaking of round by round, 4 matches played today. Do you like that, Gerard? 3 on a Saturday and 4 on a Sunday?
I don't mind it, Bruce. I think that's the way the game's going, and I think everybody at home likes it too, because that's why we've got so many calls with the crossover of the 2 games today. But I think the TV and the football are having a good marriage.
OK, so Fitzroy and Brisbane live today, by the way, in Brisbane for the first time. So Brisbane fans, you can watch your team live up there, followed by West Coast and Kilda. Who are you tipping in today's matches?
Well, I'm going for Footscray. I think Essendon's form has been a little bit poor at the start, but I wouldn't be surprised to see an upset, as we've seen. Fitzroy, I think they'll beat Brisbane well. St Kilda, I think they'll also win well. I think Richmond may just surprise down at Cardinia Park.
Gee, that is a surprise.
He's definitely going to Cirque.
Just take your turn, Bob.
Bob, you'll be last.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything.
Tim, Essendon. Kevin
Yes.
Sheedy would have been trying some magic this week. Can they produce?
Well, we often see sides that have their backs to the wall, like Essendon, come out the next week and do what we all consider the impossible. They've been down there before, and I guess it's really going to be a great test. It's amazing to think that the 3rd game into the season could be so important to a club, but it really is a very important game.
OK, you obviously give them a good chance.
I do give them a good chance, but I'm not so sure now after hearing about the born-again Doug Hawkins. That might be a little bit too hard to combat that, but I think that it'll be a pretty good game out there. It's always a good tussle between Essendon and Footscray at Western Oval.
OK, the other ones. West Coast against St Kilda?
I think the West Coast will be too strong over there. I think Richmond might upset Geelong at Geelong, and I also think that Brisbane will beat Fitzroy at Carrara.
Gee, I'm staggered. I've got to go to you, Bobby. I've got to jump the gun. How could Richmond possibly beat Geelong today?
Well, he's dumbfounded.
I don't think that I'm dumbfounded.
Well, you're dumb anyway.
Dumb at this other end. I'm going for the 2 Fs, Footscray, Fitzroy, West Coast Eagles and Geelong. Now, Ron, some sanity, please.
You want me to go for Geelong? Yes, I think Geelong will win. In fact, if they don't,
you have to
you will be after the coaching job once again.
Richmond beat them down there a couple of years ago, very well too.
Oh, yes.
Footscray,
the day that Andrew Buse got hurt.
Footscray and Fitzroy and the West Coast.
OK, so...
good thinking, Ron.
Don, are you in agreement
Hold that
with all
list
this?
up, Gerard. I've made my selection. Footscray at the Western Oval, Fitzroy against Brisbane, West Coast. And, no, I'm going to go for Geelong.
Okay.
That's normally known as an idiot shoot.
Well named too.
What do you think of the state of the MCG yesterday? Done a
It
lot
was
of
good.
sand.
Well, yes, but
Peter
the point...
German was disappointed with it when he...
No, but the reason for the sand, they aerated the... is that the word? Tim, you're a gardener. Aerated the ground with great big holes through the week. That's right. And they had to fill...
Yeah, they do it on golf courses.
Thank you very much. And what they did with the sand, Bruce, was try to fill the holes up. So someone was running around with a little eyedropper putting sand into those holes.
And fertiliser.
Well, you're going to get this,
But the ground was
when
good.
the cricket seasons meet the footy season, you can't prevent
But
that.
the ground was all right. I walked across it.
A few slipped over at the crucial moments.
Yes, there was a lot of slipping yesterday.
There's a story last
There might have
year
been the
with
pressure too.
a story last year. David Parkin said to Craig Bradley, "You're not running enough." When the MCG was full of sand, he said, "David, I'm a footballer, not a dune buggy." And I think that was pertinent.
Very
yesterday.
good line.
Did you get that one, Bob?
Excellent, excellent.
Now, that's an interesting thing about Bradley and Williams. How will they join up together?
very well, I would imagine, wouldn't you?
I would think so, but
I
some
think Bradley will take Jared's role, getting out in front, and the ball will come out to him.
Are you saying Jared was a receiver?
Well, I say that. He was always on the end of a hand pass.
I think Bradley
Always.
improved his
Always.
stats by about 20.
Well, Bradley was best on the ground yesterday, with 2 weeks ago without Williams, so we're talking about a quality player there, Don.
Gentlemen, we've got to go. Don?